So the reality is that change is hard, right? I'm guessing that probably most of you have been a part of or experienced some kind of effort to either change how handoffs were done at your institutions or any other process for workflow. And a lot of times it's really hard to make them stick because we're busy. It's hard to change our ways when we're really busy. And so I think a lot of times it results in saying, well, let's teach about a topic, which is very important. But you're probably asking yourself, or at least I know I ask myself often, how do we change culture, right? How do we actually get people to want to do the right thing when nobody is watching and nobody is listening? That's really, I think, how to think about culture for an organization is how do people act when people don't know what they're doing? There's a lot of things that lead to culture change, and it takes a lot of time. But one big thing is attitudes, right? How do people feel about the thing that you're trying to get them to do will very much impact what they do when nobody's watching. Behavior is a big part of attitudes, and behavior also includes habits, workflow, what you end up doing then often ends up, and what you're exposed to often ends up changing your attitudes. And then the tools that we have that very directly affect our behavior and what we do during our day. So if we take a moment and think about tools, there's a lot of different things that go into, what tools we can provide to change culture around handoffs. One of them is education, which we will go through and talk about. One of them is the process of how we actually do handoffs in an institution. One of them is actually assessing and giving feedback, which is incredibly important. I usually find that interns, when they see that I'm actually looking at their handoff or looking at their notes and then giving them feedback on them, they're much more likely to change what they do and make improvements because they're like, oh, she's actually paying attention. So assessing is really a way to help improve and give feedback. And then, of course, the tools that we used to perform our handoffs. And a quick note on that, which is, as I said, I've spent over a decade doing this. I built many of the tools with a team that you see here, everything from a template that we used to print on 5x8 index cards to keep track of our patients. And some people, I think, in many hospitals still do, to a Word document template, to a web-based platform, an EHR platform, all that's still printed, to now Caroline, which is electronic. But the point here is really about what are the concepts of how to promote good handoffs and how to promote good workflow. And that's really what I want to focus on for the talk. I think frameworks are great. They really help us understand and remember things. You may have heard this framework for process improvement, which is people, process, and technology. I think it's really important to remember that it really does take all three. So we'll talk about people. Obviously, our residents and interns and everybody are great. We're all in this for the right reason. But when I think about people in terms of this framework, it's educating them, teaching them why this is important so they care about it, the processes of how we implement handoffs, and then, of course, the technology that helps support them. A lot of the research that's about handoffs really is focused on the content of what should be in it. And I don't think there's very much on, how do you actually implement that? How do you actually, make a tool that helps support that, which I think is very important.